Absolutely, there are stereotypes for sure. There's expectations that come from ourselves, that come from our parents, that come from our greater Chinese or Asian American community, and then the greater Acton community of what it means to be a Chinese Acton student. The expectation is you are good at math. The expectation is you do take more rigorous academic classes. The college you go to, because you have to go to college, that's basically the expectation, is going to be higher on that list of the top universities.
In general, the Chinese students are more focused on task and more goal-oriented in high school, college, and probably into getting a first career.
So every 2 or 3 years, we always go back to China. We always bring them with us. So it's good, right? So they like Chinese cuisine, yeah. The Chinese culture, they also interested in, yeah.
I was so consumed by skating, and a lot of the skating world is predominantly white. So that was like what I was around most of the time. So I think there were many times where I would just reject Chinese culture, or things that I just didn't want to be involved in because I wanted to not either feed into stereotypes or just not be considered an other, a different.
I don't like brainstorm because it just pop up so many ideas. Later you will find that the ideas, they will not work. That's in our culture that we try to use, and we raise our voice. So we have very good confidence about our answers, then we raise it.
And the first class I went to, I could not understand what the professor is saying. I only need to know what kind of homework he's assigned.
Here, when I met my colleagues, and which mostly, were engineers, their wife, most of them didn't work. That was a culture shock to me. And their wife had good education, and they give up their jobs, raise their kids. They're volunteer, they work in library, in their kids' school. For me, it was kind of unthinkable at the time. So, you get all this education, so you should have your own career. So that's very different.
There are periods of time I have to adjust myself because with the newborn baby, right, and also new culture, and I did not have a job anymore. I stayed at home, right? So I have to rethink about my career, rethink about my future. So that was a big adjustment for me.
I think culture-wise, it's very similar because I think essentially there's the people from Taiwan. They're very much they have a Confucius background, teaching kind of built into their blood. It's part of their DNA. And I would say a lot of that is similar for mainlanders, but I think mainlanders, they face a lot more competition, even among themselves, to be successful, to get ahead. Because if you don't, there are millions of other people would.
I think since I was in 6th grade, I really wanted to kind of be the voice for people who, my class at the time, we would promise our classmates to get free ice cream or something. In the later years of high school, we had more pressing issues that we started to advocate for, and some things were more minor, small things that would try to alleviate some student stress, and other things that we tried to help bring social justice to underserved communities, and kind of donating to organizations that would help low-income families during the pandemic. And I think those things, it allows me to feel like my time at high school isn't just me just like working my hardest to get what I want, but it also kind of gives back to the community that has kind of like helped me become who I am.
We spend a lot of time volunteer also in Chinese school over the years, especially at the very beginning, So we have so many family. We became very close because of the experience in those volunteer work, right? And the kid also became very close. Yeah. So it has been very rewarding experience for us.
Back in 2017 and 2018, I think our school has about triple sized. We have about 600 students, not only in Acton, but also around this neighborhood.
I really saw the Chinese families in Acton come together to they're not here to be like, we're just going to get our kids through this good school system and get them to college. They're like, we're actually going to build community in this town and have our presence be felt, to the point where now we're having this conversation.
There's Chinese, there's American, there's Russian, there's Korean. So it's our belief is that the body of Christ should not be divided by your race, by your culture, by your language. So everyone should be one. That's how we practice.
I think I'm somebody who has a pretty healthy self-esteem. I don't feel inferior to anybody. I certainly don't see myself as inferior as Chinese to be inferior to Caucasian people. I just don't feel that way. Maybe part of me reject that thinking.
I think my experience overall, I think was positive. I feel like I grew a lot, I learned a lot, and I was able to have a voice in the community, do the things I wanted to, I liked. And if anything, this is probably a silver linings out of the pandemic, out of my retirement. I was able to connect with more people, actually, virtually, and do more things and for the organizations.
I don't think that's fair to China. Also, it's not fair to Chinese American here, because we got hit, right? So if there is something, they took on us. So really not a good environment. And honestly speaking, for the first time, I feel unsafe.
From 2001 to 2012, I was part of the ABRH, Acton Boxborough Public School District. Through Merriam, through RJ Gray, through Acton Boxborough. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty positive that every single educator I ever had there was a white person.
I do wish I didn't push away all like the culture as much as I did growing up. But like, there's nothing I can really do about it now other than just be more involved now. But yeah, I think that is definitely something that a lot of like students feel after they like graduate high school and kind of like be more exposed to the real world. And I think that's something that I've definitely learned from being in New York City, where it's a lot more diverse, and that like you can be proud of being diverse, and it's something, yeah, that you should be proud of.
Sometimes people make comments like, your English is a lot better than my Chinese. That kind of comment, I just shrug off. I think, it's probably a stock social talk. It doesn't mean much. If I want to take it seriously, I would think that's an insult to me. I study English. I don't take the offense because I feel like it was not intentional. It was not personal. It was just sometimes people try to make social talk and they don't know how to make it more comfortable for the receiving end.
There was one way in which it wasn't helpful to them, and that was it's very easy, you know, this model minority idea that everybody who's Chinese is great in math. Sometimes they felt that was a burden that they couldn't meet. And they felt like, I can't be Chinese in basic math class. You know, you have to be in honors to be Chinese.
Last year, it really bothered me that in learning United States history for 2 years, the only incidences where we learned about Asian Americans were the Chinese Exclusion Act and the experiences of Asians at Angel Island. And while those were two very clear examples of the Asian American experience, I think there's definitely very little coverage of not only Asian American experience, but like other minority experiences as well.
We're actually looking into a bill which has been filed early in March by Senator called Louise and from Framingham. And the bill is about the racial justice in education. So basically, it's not just for Asian Americans, it's for all the minorities, including Black, Latinos, Indigenous people. So I think I was hoping to push that forward.
Definitely, we love Acton very much. That's why after we retired, we still stay in this town.
Yeah, I like the natural beauty here, right? Small town setting. So many trees, green trees and grass. So I really like this place. And still like Lara Park or Arboretum and the new bike trail, they all are my favorites, right? So really I lived here probably the longest in my life so far. And we have so many good friends close by and our neighbors are extremely nice. So I could not imagine I would live in anywhere else. Actually, I just love here. 20 years is my time here. I think I will stay.
Most of my friends are like extremely supportive of each other, and we don't really kind of echo this negative stress that a lot of parents or other people might put on us. But I think, overall, just like I was able to form a supportive environment, and we all had our eyes focused on, like doing well and putting in our best effort, but it was more about us doing our best than like getting that A+ or whatever.
Each year, the biggest event we hold is the Chinese New Year celebrations. That's normally we invited all the families and friends and around the town and across different towns and to go to we normally host it in the high school auditorium.
The fact that, I don't know who's in charge of all these things, but the fact that like Gates would host like the Chinese church, that RJ Gray would host the Chinese school, like I think that does speak to like the care that these powers that be in Acton have shown toward the Chinese community, which I appreciate. And
we want to stay in this country. We love this country so much.
The historical societies in these New England towns have often taken a fairly narrow view, looking at the Revolutionary period or the 19th century, and they don't see the history being made right in front of them by different members of the community. And it helps, I think, give a sense of appreciation of other people's experiences and hopefully a degree of empathy.